Got a couple of sunny days coming up now, so we are back to working on the Dodger. We just got our foam delivered that we're going to be building the top out of. The next steps are going to be to build like a mold that we can attach the foam to and then glass the top of that tip. It's going to be crunchy because of the glass.
Everything is nice and stiff. We just have to figure out how to carry it up there.
All right, as you guys know, we've been building a hard Dodger for the past couple of weeks when the weather allows us. We've got a couple of sunny days coming up now, so we are back to working on the Dodger. We just got our foam delivered that we're going to be building the top out of. And so the next steps are going to be to build like a upside down mold that we can attach the foam to so we can glass the underside of it. And then we can flip that mold over and glass the top down and then glass the top of that once it's installed. So that way it kind of keeps its shape, and then we can finish glassing the inside once we can put a top on it and get it all dried out inside, because it has been a couple of days and there is moisture in there now. So yeah, we just picked up some plywood from the hardware store, and we just need to build a female mold that we can put the top in and start glassing it. Finished building the support for the top of our Dodger. It's really loud outside because we got like a jackhammer going on, deconstructing some concrete floating dock. We got the guys beside us grinding and sanding. So this morning I'm going to be chopping up some glass and mixing up some resin, and then laying down some glass on the underside of our Dodger top. We've decided to do it in 2 steps. We built the mold, like a female mold, to put the top in, so it's upside down. And then we're going to glass the underside of the Dodger top, which is currently facing up. And once that cures, we'll be able to like put some supports on it, flip it over, and glass the other side. And hopefully it's stiff enough that it doesn't like bend itself out when we flip it over. Should also probably pause and explain something else. We decided to build the top of the Dodger out of foam. I know a lot of you guys were questioning why we built the sides out of plywood. I feel like we explained it, but if it wasn't quite clear enough, here's the reasoning. The sides of the Dodger, 90% of them are going to get cut out and replaced with glass windows. Now, those windows and the actual glass itself that we put around the sides weigh significantly more than the little bit of plywood that's going to be left over that sort of make up the frame. And since we're going to be adding handrails to some parts of it, and we're building a bit of an arch along the back of it, that would have been made out of plywood anyway. Plywood's a significantly easier material to work with, and since most of it's going to be removed anyway, the weight really isn't much of an issue. So we have decided to build the top out of foam because the whole top is 4 square meters and it's also 25 millimeters thick. This is just like a sample piece of foam. The actual top is 2.5 times thicker than this. So because it's such a large expanse, it makes sense to make it out of foam. However, foam is a pain in the ass to work with because it has no like structural integrity on its own. It's only a real viable building material once you make it into a composite with fiberglass on each side. Now, there are a few ways to do that. You can just laminate glass on both sides, creating a bit of a composite sandwich. You can also vacuum infuse it, which means you spend a lot more time building a strong mold. You cover it with plastic, you put some extra material inside to allow the resin to flow through. You bag it, you seal it, you have to check to make sure it is a vacuum, and then you can release your resin into it, and like the vacuum pulls the resin through and you shut it off, and then it cures. A lot more can go wrong when you vacuum infuse because you have to get it all right the first time, and if there's any air bubbles or the resin doesn't make it all the way through, or it doesn't wet out all the way, or it kicks before it makes it all the way through, you have to scrap the whole piece. And so it's a lot more of a complex process, and it does reduce the weight a bit. And where it reduces the weight is by reducing the amount of resin that you use. The glass is the same, the foam is the same, and the overall strength is pretty similar for what we're doing. Now, if we were making a race boat or some ultralight thing, you could engineer and do the math and argue that vacuum infusing is probably stronger. It's definitely stronger per weight. However, we're building an old cruising boat, and the only reason we're using foam for the top of it is just because it is 4 square meters. And if we built that out of plywood, it would be really heavy. So we're building it out of foam to help reduce weight. We're not vacuum infusing it because it would be a huge waste of time because we don't need it to be 3 kilograms less resin or whatever. We're not trying to save a ton of money. Vinyl ester is relatively cheap, and mixing 2 or 3 extra liters of it isn't really gonna make or break this entire project. Also, one more thing. We've now been here at this yard for a little over a year. And 1 year ago, around this time, we were starting to put in the main bulkheads inside of UMA. To run a little bit of a test, I went and put a chunk of, wait, let me just show you. We're gonna go on a little walk, a little field trip, so to speak. All right, so check this out. A year ago, I put this piece of plywood out on the breakwater here, right at the surface of the ocean, where there is maybe a foot of tide here in the Med, and so every day, twice a day, this piece of wood has gotten covered in salt water and then exposed to the sun, covered in salt water, exposed to the sun. Because a lot of you guys have also been asking, well, what happens, like, won't plywood rot? Or why aren't we sealing the edges because wood is organic and it's going to rot, blah, blah, blah. So this is marine ply. It's what we've been using to build out the entire interior of the boat. And as you can see, it has been out in the surf, in the salt water, in the sun, in one of the worst possible conditions for wood to survive in. And there is 0 delamination. Yeah, it's like, you know, mildewy. It's got growth on it. But the wood itself is still completely intact. It's still exactly the same strength that it was a year ago when it's been exposed to water. And this is worst case scenario, the worst possible conditions for this wood to be in. Inside of our boat, the wood's never gonna get wet. It's completely glassed into the hull and it's sealed with multiple layers of epoxy primer. And so even if the boat flooded, even down in the bilge, it's never, ever, ever, ever gonna be exposed to this amount of moisture. It's not gonna rot, and it's going to provide a stronger, more durable core material than foam would have. And that's why we're building it out of plywood. So for those of you who are concerned, don't be. With that said, I need to cut some glass and cut some peel ply and mix up some resin, and go outside and lay the first layers into the mold that we created just to keep that foam in its shape, and then flip it over and do it on the other side tomorrow. That's the plan for today. All right, well, that side's, I guess, done. What an incredibly frustrating process that was to do by myself outside in the wind particularly. It's just a nightmare to get the glass down and make it smooth. I wheel it back into the sun so it'll kick off now, but ugh, what a nightmare. All right, so the layers of glass on the underside of our Dodger top have had a few days to cure and they're super dry. And so we need to flip it over now and glass what's going to be the top side. But because there's only glass on one side of the foam, it's still not really a composite, so it's still not really stiff. So we're using the cutouts from the other side of the form, and we're just going to kind of like tab them in place with some hot glue to make sure that the curve stays the same when we flip it over. That's the plan. All right, do you want to do like that side and I'll do this side as we go? How about I like lift it in the middle and then you slide them both in?
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah, it doesn't weigh anything. Yeah, perfect. If we put like sawhorse, 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 and then we'll be able to glass it. Maybe what we do is we take this off, we flip the whole framework over and put it back on the wheels, and then put this on top of the framework upside down. Let's lower it back down onto the wheels, take the sawhorses out, flip this over onto the sawhorses, and then flip this
And then put it back
onto the wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, tip. It's gonna be crunchy because of the glass. All right, then maybe like pick it up here. Yep. Okay. Up. All right, come with me. All right, we've got three layers, so 6 pieces total on the top of our Dodger top. It overlaps in the middle, so we've got like 6 full layers in here and then 3 on each side, because the middle is going to be the biggest unsupported section, so we overlapped it in the middle on both sides, so it'll be like stronger. But we're going to leave it underneath this catamaran we borrowed for the day because the weather still looks very questionable and we don't want it to rain on top of it. So it looks really good though. It was much easier with 2 people. Go figure. And we'll see, hopefully it dries and then we'll check on it tomorrow.
All right, well, the glass had time to dry. Everything is nice and stiff. So today is going to be the first day that we're going to test fit it on the Dodger. We just have to figure out how to carry it up there.
Ready?
Yeah.
Should we flip it like sideways, do you think?
We'll
or just
have
pick
to,
it up?
yeah. Ooh, careful, there's a broom.
Walking up the stairs. You want to? Oh, it's really windy.
Let's pause for a second.
You need help
Yeah,
doing
yeah, that would be
Maybe.
awesome because the wind is just pushing. It's very sharp. You got it? You can like crawl up.
Oops. Yeah. That's good. It's the plywood underneath. Perfetto. Yeah, it was just this.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Grazie, ciao.
So our lovely neighbors came to help out because with this wind, it was almost impossible for Den and I to bring the Dodger top on the boat because the wind just kept trying to push it over. So yeah, our neighbors on the boat next to us came and they help us out. So that's super cool. All right, well, it's up. Obviously, it's much bigger than it needs to be, but now we get to fit it in and measure where we want to cut it and where the radiuses are going to be and how, if we need to cut a little bit of the Dodger itself down a little bit just for everything to fit. And then, yeah, it's shaping up to be awesome.
Well, now that we've got the pretty much final shape of the Dodger top cutout, we can now level it because we left these front panels a little bit tall, knowing that there was going to be some weird kind of gap in here because the top is curved. And so now I can go along and sort of trace a perimeter and then use Kika's favorite tool to trim that down and lower it because the front's actually maybe 3 centimeters or 4 centimeters taller. It's actually angled back right now. So we need to take this gap out of here and trim it down so that this is a nice flush fit. And we're sloped forward a bit, so water drains forward when we're on anchor and it's raining. But yeah, it looks really good. It's starting to come together quite nicely.
Up a little bit? No, down a little bit? Right here.
All right, so that's exactly 3 centimeters. 3 centimeters aft, so we need to slope it by at least 4 centimeters forward. If we take 3 centimeters off, it'll be level, but I don't really want it to be level. I want it to slope forward a little bit, so that, I mean, when we're offshore sailing and we get water, you're gonna get wet in the cockpit anyway. Underneath here will stay dry, but you know, if we take a wave big enough to make it on top of the Dodger,
angling it forward or aft is not going to make any difference. What we're trying to avoid is when it's raining, having it all just slope off the back. Now, because it is sloped side to side, generally speaking, the rain's going to go to port and starboard, but it's angled aft pretty dramatically right now because we still have all that extra wood on the front. And so the goal is going to be to trim all that extra wood off and make like a nice smooth curve on all those sharp edges that we had on the front. And so, yeah, at a minimum, it needs to be 3. 4 would be probably okay, and 5 would be better. It will also lower that front a little bit, so the visibility from back here, at least for me, forward will be a little bit better. And we're not going to lose any headroom underneath because we're angling it forward of the companionway where we're going to be crouching anyway. So kind of a win-win. I think we should take 5 off.
5 sounds good.
5 sounds good. So it's already 2. Well, if we cut it back so that was level, it would be 3. But if we cut it down to 5, then that's going to be right there somewhere.
Something about like there.
Take that and that.
Ready?
Yep.
We are now just a little bit over a centimeter sloping forward. And to all of those of you in the comment section who think using a level on a boat is silly, it's definitely not, because our boat's level to the waterline, and the waterline is where our boat's going to float. And so if we're in a nice calm anchorage, level is still level. And so this is now sloped forward slightly to our waterline. And so when the boat's trimmed to the waterline, then rain's going to slide forward instead of aft. And we're only trying to protect ourselves in, like I said, an anchorage. If we're offshore sailing, the boat's moving so much, unless you angled it like that, you're still going to get water. If something comes all the way up here, it's still going to end up in the cockpit. But the point of a hard Dodger this big is that we're going to be inside of it, not in the cockpit, so we're still not going to get wet. So yeah, we're sloped forward just enough that water will slightly drain forward, but then mostly it's just going to drain off the sides, which is the goal. So we're getting pretty close to being able to glass this thing. We still have a little bit more trimming to do, a little bit more sanding to do, and then we'll be able to glue it down, which is pretty sweet.
We finished cutting the Dodger top to shape. We rounded all the edges, we sanded everything, and now we're ready to glass this thing onto the Dodger and make it permanent. In order for this to stay in the right position, we put all sorts of weight on top of it just to press it down. And I just finished cutting all the fiberglass pieces, then just finished sanding and wiping everything with acetone. And so yeah, we're going to bog everything and then add layers of glass. All right. Well, we just put in the last layer of peel ply. Just in time too, because the sun just set and it's getting darker and colder. Hopefully this will dry tomorrow, and once it dries we'll add a layer of primer just to protect the fiberglass from the sun, and then the next step is going to be to work on the windows. So I'm tired. It's been a day.
Good job.
Yeah, I know.
Non-sticky Vista.
Boom. Non-sticky.
Looks
not
really
high
good.
five.
Looks really, really good.
It looks really good. I'm excited to see what it looks like in the end.
Me too.
Yeah,
Good. It's not even glass on the inside. It's still super strong.
I like it. Yeah, so this entire area, we're gonna try to put as much solar as possible on it.
Can't do that with a
So-
soft Dodger.
No, definitely can't.
So now that it's done, we can template it and send that to Kim so we can map out how much solar we can put up here too. Minus our little window maybe.
Yeah.
Well, we slapped a coat of primer on this thing so that it's ready to be faired now, but we still have to glass the inside, which we'll do next week, and then cut the holes for the windows, which we'll do next week.
Yeah.
And then all the glass work's gonna be done, and this thing's gonna look like something.
Awesome.
Yeah,
It's gonna
I
look
like it.
so cool. Super. All right, guys. Well, hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you guys next week.
A
Cheers.
little dance party. I'm scared to go down there because we don't have the arch on there.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
That's a little crunchy. we're not gonna do that side. We need to glass the arch on theirs.